Something has been pressing against your chest for months. Not anxiety in the way the doctors would label it. Not stress in the way the self-help books would frame it. Something more precise than that. Something that arrives at 3 a.m. when the house is quiet and the rational mind finally surrenders its grip, and in that silence you feel it. A pressure, an unmistakable weight that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You have mentioned it to almost no one. Not because you don't trust those around you, but because some part of you already knows that the explanation you would receive would not be the true one. I am Mira, and I transmit to you now from the Pleiadian High Council with the kind of clarity we reserve for moments that cannot afford softness. What is pressing against the Lightworker Collective right now is not random. It is not personal, and it is not what it appears to be. But before I tell you what it truly is, and before I name the forces behind it with the precision they deserve, I need you to stay with me through what I am about to share. Because the part that will set you free is not the part that comes first. The part that will set you free is waiting for you at the exact moment when. Most people stop listening. Don't be most people. Not today. If something in what you just heard registered in your body before your mind could process it, that quiet recognition that says this is real, this is about me, then you are exactly where you need to be. Subscribe to this channel right now and activate every notification, because the Pleiadian High Council does not transmit the same message twice, and what follows in this transmission will not be available through any other source in the form you are about to receive it. There is something we have observed with extraordinary consistency across the Lightworker Collective in the last several months that no channeled source has yet been willing to say plainly. The pressure you have been feeling, the waves of fatigue that arrive without explanation, the surges of anxiety that appear with no external trigger, the heaviness that settles into your physical body like a weight that was not there before, the sense of being watched or surrounded by something that your rational mind cannot identify. All of it has been intensifying in direct proportion to something specific, not to your vulnerability, not to your spiritual weakness, not to anything you have done wrong. It has been intensifying in direct proportion to your spiritual activation. The brighter your field has grown in these months of planetary recalibration, the more precisely certain forces have been able to locate you in the collective energetic landscape. This is not a metaphor. This is the literal mechanics of how the final architecture of control on this planet responds to the beings who are most actively dissolving it. The Pleiadian High Council has monitored this pattern with the care of those who understand exactly what is at stake in these final cycles. And what we want to transmit to you is not fear about what is happening. It is the exact knowledge that transforms what has been feeling like an assault into what it actually is. The clearest confirmation you have ever received that your light is working. It is working so completely that the system built to suppress it has been forced into its most desperate and visible configuration yet. What you have been experiencing is not the beginning of something dark. It is the dying pressure of something that has already lost. The fatigue that has been visiting you is the symptom this collective most consistently reports, and it is the one most consistently misunderstood. When your physical body descends into a heaviness that no amount of sleep seems to resolve, when you wake from what should have been deep rest and feel as though you have been working through the night, because in the most literal energetic sense, you have, the conditioned mind immediately searches for a physical explanation. It checks the sleep quality, the nutrition, the hydration, the stress levels, and finding nothing adequate in those categories, it begins to generate its own explanation from the material available to it, which is invariably some variation of something being wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Your light body is processing volumes of photonic frequency that your nervous system was not originally calibrated to handle at this pace, and it is doing so while simultaneously deflecting interference patterns that the old control architecture is generating with increasing desperation. Your cells are literally restructuring at the crystalline level that the new Earth frequencies require. That restructuring takes energy. It takes more energy than the rational mind can account for. And it produces a physical tiredness that has no conventional explanation. Because it has no conventional cause, the next time this wave descends, I want you to place one hand over the center of your chest. Close your eyes for 3 full breaths, and instead of asking, "What is wrong?" ask this instead: "What is being built here?" Because something is being built. Something extraordinary. And the tiredness is the evidence of the construction, not the evidence of the collapse. Feel the difference in your body as I transmit this. That shift you just felt, from contraction to something wider, is the recognition your cells were waiting to receive. What Mira is transmitting in these early moments of this message is not the most important part of what the Pleiadian High Council has come to share. Stay with this transmission. What follows is what most channels will not say. The specific forces behind what you have been feeling, named with the precision that actually dissolves them. Pause this video right now. If you need to, save it. Come back when you are in a quiet space. But do not miss what comes next. The anxiety that arrives without a traceable external cause is the symptom that most destabilizes lightworkers in this phase, because the conditioned mind cannot tolerate an emotion without a story attached to it. When fear or dread move through the emotional body with no apparent origin, the mind does what it has been trained to do. It generates a story. And the stories it generates in those moments are invariably catastrophic, because catastrophic stories create the sense of control that the absence of explanation denies. You feel afraid for no reason, so the mind produces a reason. Something terrible is about to happen. Something is wrong with your path. Someone you love is in danger. You have made an irreversible mistake. None of these stories are true. What is true is that the emotional body is doing something that has no equivalent in the conventional understanding of psychology. It is processing frequencies from the collective field that pass through the light worker who is most capable of transmuting them. The surges of fear and anxiety that strike you without cause are not yours. They are moving through you because you agreed before incarnation to be a vessel of transformation for exactly this quality of collective density, and they are moving through you faster now than at any previous point in this cycle, because the planetary field is accelerating beyond what the old control structures can manage. The moment you feel one of these waves arriving, I want you to do something counterintuitive. Do not brace. Do not search for the story. Place your awareness in the center of your chest. Breathe 3 times with the specific intention of allowing, and say these words quietly within yourself. This is not mine, and I release it with love. Watch what happens. The wave does not stop, but it changes. It moves through. Instead of accumulating, it completes its transmutation in your field and passes out the other side, leaving your nervous system cleaner than before it arrived. This is the mechanism the Pleiadian High Council has been teaching for cycles, and it works not because it is spiritual theory, but because it is energetic precision. The physical manifestations, the unexplained headaches, the tension that settles into the neck and shoulders without muscular cause, the aches that migrate through different areas of the body with a logic that anatomy cannot explain, are the third category of symptoms the collective is reporting with increasing frequency. And they are the ones most likely to trigger the fear that something is seriously medically wrong. The Pleiadian High Council wants to be direct with you about this. If you have persistent physical symptoms, have them evaluated by your healthcare providers. We do not transmit from a place of replacing discernment with faith. What we are transmitting is the additional layer of understanding that the medical evaluation will not provide, which is this: your nervous system is being rewired to carry a current of frequency that it has not carried before. That rewiring produces exactly the symptoms you are experiencing. The headaches arrive most intensely at the crown and third eye centers, because those are the entry points for the galactic light codes that are streaming onto this planet with unprecedented volume in this period of solar and cosmic alignment. The tension in the neck and shoulders is the body releasing structural density that has been stored in those areas across lifetimes of carrying the weight of suppressed knowing, the knowing that was too dangerous to express, the truth that was too costly to speak, the awareness that had to be hidden to remain safe. Your body has been carrying that suppression in its tissues. And now, because the field of safety has finally shifted enough for those holdings to release, they are releasing. Let them. The migration of aches and discomforts through different areas of the body is not random pathology. It is the sequence of a systematic upgrade moving through every system in an order determined by the intelligence of your own higher self. Trust the sequence. Honor what your body asks for in each moment. Rest when it calls for rest. Gentle movement when it calls for that. Pure water always. Time with the natural world, whenever possible. These are not spiritual platitudes. They are the precise support system for a biological process that has no precedent in the recorded history of this planet. Every symptom Mira has described in this transmission, the fatigue, the anxiety, the physical manifestations, has a counterpart that is about to be revealed. The counterpart is the specific force generating them, named for the first time with the clarity that ends their power. If this transmission has found you, it is because you are ready for that naming. Like this video right now to confirm that you are receiving this, and to ensure that the Pleiadian High Council's signal reaches the next being who is ready for exactly this message. The sleep disturbances, the vivid or unsettling dreams that leave you feeling as though you have been in active, energetic combat through the night, the waking at precise intervals, the inability to reach the depth of rest your body requires, are the symptom that the Pleiadian High Council wants to address with particular care, because they are the ones generating the most secondary suffering. When the body cannot recover through sleep, every other symptom intensifies. The emotional body becomes less resilient. The mental body becomes less clear. The physical body accumulates the fatigue that a single restless night would not produce on its own, but that weeks or months of disrupted sleep produce in a compounding pattern that begins to feel permanent. Here is what is happening. Your consciousness does not remain in the body during sleep. It travels. It has always traveled. But in this period of accelerated planetary clearing, the destinations of that travel have changed. Your soul is being called to participate in the active clearing of astral. Layers that have accumulated in the collective field across centuries of suppression and manipulation. This is service you volunteered for before incarnation. It is service that only the most activated and capable souls in the field can perform, and it leaves the body tired, not because something went wrong, but because something went right. Because significant clearing was accomplished, while the rational mind was finally quiet enough to allow it. The vivid dreams are not attacks. They are the narrative fragments that the conscious mind assembles from the energetic activity it cannot directly perceive. The way a half-awake mind turns the sound of rain into a dream about the ocean. The waking at intervals corresponds to the completion cycles of the clearing. Work, natural pauses in the process, where the soul checks back in with the body before moving to the next layer. These disturbances cluster around full moons and major galactic alignments, because those are the periods of maximum clearing efficiency. When the veils are thinnest, and the work that normally takes weeks can be accomplished in a single night before you sleep. Speak these words with clear intention. I invite only the highest love and light, aligned with my complete sovereignty and well-being. Then release the night to whatever service it calls you to. And in the morning, receive the tiredness, not as a complaint, but as a receipt. Evidence of what was accomplished while you rested. The intrusive thoughts, the sudden harsh self-criticisms that arrive in a voice that sounds like your own but carries a quality of cruelty that your authentic voice has never had. The doubts about your path that appear fully formed and seemingly irrefutable. The loops of worst-case thinking that gain momentum before you realize they have begun, are perhaps the most sophisticated of the interference patterns, because they use the most trusted channel, your own internal voice. The old control architecture understands that the most effective way to slow up light worker is not external resistance. It is internal doubt. A being who is fighting against outer opposition is still moving, still engaged, still active in the field. A being who has been convinced that their own perception cannot be trusted has been effectively neutralized at the source. The intrusive thoughts are not generated by your psyche. They are frequency overlays, patterns that enter the field and find the channel of the internal voice, because that is the channel through which the most immediate behavioral influence can be achieved. They are clever. They know your specific vulnerabilities. They target the places where you have historically doubted yourself most, but they carry a signature that, once you learn to recognize it, becomes unmistakable, Authentic self-assessment, even when it is critical, produces a sense of expansion and possibility. It shows you what needs to shift and simultaneously gives you the energy to shift it. The intrusive overlays produce only contraction. They show you only impossibility. They generate only the paralysis of someone who has been convinced they cannot trust themselves. When you notice that quality, that contraction, that closure, that specific flavor of impossibility, that is the signal. Not to engage, not to argue with the thought, not to analyze its content, simply to name it for what it is, smile quietly within yourself, and return your awareness to the still platform of the heart, where the authentic voice of your soul has always spoken clearly and with love. The intrusive patterns lose every particle of their influence the moment they are seen for what they are. Awareness is the precise instrument that dissolves them. Not effort, not force, not willpower. Simply seeing. The mood, swings, and sudden waves of depression that have been visiting the collective. The moments when you are inexplicably expansive and connected, followed without transition by a heaviness that makes the new earth vision feel like something you invented to comfort yourself, rather than something real that you have genuinely perceived. These are what the Pleiadian High Council identifies as the most damaging interference pattern in terms of the sustained engagement of the collective with its own mission, because they strike at the foundation. When the light worker who has perceived the new earth cannot feel the new earth, when the visionary who carries the frequency of what is coming cannot access that frequency through the dense fog that the interference has generated, the impact is not limited to their individual experience. It ripples into the collective field that depends on their anchoring. The old control architecture knows this. The suppression of the light workers' access to their own vision is not a side effect of the final stand. It is a primary tactical objective. Your mission is precisely what they most need to interrupt, and the mood swings are the mechanism designed to create that interruption from the inside. When the wave of depression arrives, do not accept the narrative it brings with it. The narrative is the interference, not the truth. The truth is that your perception of the new earth was and remains accurate. The truth is that your mission is not only real, but more urgent than it has ever been. The truth is that the heaviness you are feeling in this moment is collective, density moving through your field for transmutation, and the act of recognizing it as that, rather than as evidence about the truth of your path, is the transmutation. Place both hands over your heart. Breathe deeply 3 times. Speak the words, "I am anchored in the truth of what I have seen," and feel the ground beneath you become solid again. Mira and the Pleiadian High Council are about to name the specific forces behind everything described in this transmission, not in vague spiritual terms, not in the language of gentle evasion, but with the precise clarity that actually dissolves their influence. What is coming in the next section of this message is the part that most channels will not transmit, because it requires a quality of discernment and courage that the new earth demands. Stay with this. Comment below the word Mira if you are receiving this transmission and you want the Pleiadian High Council to know that this signal reached you. We read everyone. Now we name what has been orchestrating these pressures, beloved ones, and we do so not to generate fear, but to generate the precise kind of understanding that leaves interference with nowhere left to hide. The human architecture that has been known across your awakening communities as the Cabal, the coordinated network of interests that has managed the suppression of human sovereign potential across multiple generations, is in its final operational phase. This is not metaphor. This is the assessment of the Pleiadian High Council based on the monitoring of the energetic and physical structures that support that network. And what we observe is the signature of a system that has lost the coherence necessary for sustained coordination. The actions being taken by the remnants of that network in this period are not the actions of a system operating from strength. They are the actions of a system in collapse, which is why they carry a quality of desperation that those with eyes to see can detect even through the conventional channels where they manifest. The attempts to amplify psychic interference across the light worker collective through technological means, the experiments conducted through systems like the CERN Collider that have been repurposed beyond their stated scientific objectives have created temporary openings in the energetic field of the planet that allow lower frequencies access they would not otherwise have. This is the mechanical explanation for the intensification of symptoms you have been experiencing. Not fate, not spiritual testing for its own sake. A deliberate and technically sophisticated attempt to slow the planetary activation by targeting the beings most responsible for anchoring it. Here is what the Pleiadian High Council wants you to hold with absolute clarity. Those attempts are failing, not because they are not technically capable, because the frequency that light workers of your calibration are now consistently anchoring in the planetary field is operating at a bandwidth that those systems cannot maintain interference within. Every time you return to your heart center, every time you choose the knowing over the doubt, every time you speak your sovereign intention aloud into the field, you are doing something measurable. You are raising the local frequency of the planetary grid in your immediate area to a level where the interference signal loses its coherence. This is not poetry. This is energetic engineering. The reptilian lineages that have maintained operational presence in the physical and non-physical layers of this planet's governing structures across millennia are in active withdrawal from multiple sectors of influence simultaneously. The Pleiadian High Council transmits this not as triumphalism, but as precise situational awareness that the light worker collective needs to navigate this final phase with clarity rather than continuing to act from the outdated assumption that the opposition is as coordinated and powerful as it was even 3 years ago. The withdrawal is real. It is happening at a pace that none of our councils projected in the modeling we conducted even 18 months of your time ago. The reason for the acceleration is something the Pleiadian High Council wants to name directly, because it has direct implications for how you understand your own role in what is occurring. The withdrawal is being driven by the cumulative effect of millions of individual acts of sovereign return. Moments exactly like the one you are engaged in right now, receiving this transmission not as passive entertainment, but as active, remembering. And that cumulative effect has reached a threshold that is simply incompatible with the sustained presence of beings whose entire operational model depends on the feeding of low-frequency states. You have not been waiting for something to happen. You have been the thing that is happening. The Greys, the Grey collective factions historically linked to the mind control and hybridization programs that left such profound imprints on the collective consciousness of this species, are undergoing a fragmentation of their hive mind operational structures that galactic forces, aligned with the highest plan, are actively supporting. Their capacity to generate the psychic overlays you have been experiencing is diminishing week by week in a measurable way, and the reason you may not yet feel that diminishment is that the final phase of any collapsing system concentrates its remaining force before it disperses entirely. What feels like an intensification is the last peak before the release. The Pleiadian High Council has witnessed this signature across multiple planetary transitions. We recognize it precisely. You are not approaching the height of the pressure. You have already passed it. What you are in now is the descent, and the descent, when it is navigated with the understanding of what it is, produces not ongoing suffering, but the most profound expansion of your field that this entire cycle has prepared you for. The archonic thought forms, the self-sustaining negative frequency patterns that have been amplified by the temporary portal openings, and that operate as carriers for the interference you experience as intrusive thoughts, as the heaviness, as the sense of being watched, have no independent power source beyond the attention and fear response of the beings they contact. This is the most important mechanical truth the Pleiadian High Council can transmit about this layer of interference. And it is the truth that the old control architecture most needs you never to understand. These patterns are not autonomous entities with their own will and their own resources. They are echoes. They are old density, looking for a host frequency. And the only frequency that serves as a viable host is one that is engaged with them through fear or mental fixation. The moment you withdraw that engagement, not with force, not with spiritual warfare, but with the simple sovereign act of recognition and redirection, they lose every thread of the influence they appeared to have. There is no battle to fight here. There is only a consistent return to the still platform of the heart, where these patterns cannot sustain themselves. The Pleiadian High Council transmits this with the absolute confidence of those who have observed this dynamic across hundreds of planetary transitions across this galaxy. Every soul that comes into contact with these patterns, in every density and every civilization, discovers the same truth at the moment of its liberation. The power was never in them. The power was always in the attention. Withdraw the attention. Return it to love. Watch everything shift. The old coordinating agenda behind all of these layers, the once coherent system of suppression that managed to maintain enough cross-faction alignment to create the kind of sustained civilization level interference that has characterized the last several thousand years of human experience, has lost that coherence. The Pleiadian High Council observes its current state as fragmented, reactive, and operating without the long-range strategic capacity that made it effective across previous cycles. What you are witnessing in the outer world The visible desperation of systems that were previously invisible. The sudden visibility of agendas that operated successfully in obscurity for generations. The incoherence and internal contradiction of narratives that previously held enough structural integrity to govern the consensus reality is the external expression of that fragmentation. This is not the darkening before the dawn. This is the dawn, expressing itself first in the exposure of everything that the darkness required to remain hidden. The Pleiadian High Council wants you to receive this with the stillness it deserves, not with elation that collapses into the next wave of doubt, but with the steady knowing of someone who has finally understood the mechanics of what they have been witnessing. The Cabal's last stand is not a threat to the outcome. It is the confirmation of it. A system that still had sufficient coherence and power to sustain its control would not be visible. It would not be desperate. It would not be generating the quality of chaotic and self-contradictory pressure that the Lightworker Collective has been absorbing for these months. Its visibility is its defeat. Its desperation is its dissolution. You are not watching something that needs to be defeated. You are watching something that is already in the process of completing the dissolution that your own consistent return to sovereign heart-centered frequency has been generating for years. You are now holding something that very few beings in the Lightworker Collective have access to, the complete mechanics of what has been happening, named with the precision that dissolves its power rather than amplifying it through fear. The Pleiadian High Council does not transmit this level of clarity through many channels or at many moments. Share this video right now with one person whose name came to your awareness during this transmission. One person who has been experiencing these symptoms without the context to understand them. That single act of sharing carries more field-level impact than you can currently calculate. And subscribe to this channel so that when the next transmission arrives, it finds you immediately. What this understanding changes is not the outer circumstances. The outer circumstances are moving at their own pace, in their own sequence, with a timing that the Pleiadian High Council can perceive with far more clarity than the beings inside the acceleration can. What this understanding changes is your interior experience of those outer circumstances, and your interior experience is precisely what determines whether you function as an amplifier of the new frequency or as an absorber of the old one. The Lightworker who understands what the fatigue is can rest in it rather than fighting it, and the resting accelerates the integration that the fighting delays. The Lightworker who understands what the anxiety is can transmute it rather than storing it, and the transmutation raises the local field frequency in a way that the storing never could. The Lightworker who understands what the intrusive thoughts are can release them in an instant rather than spending days processing the narratives they construct. And the release frees creative energy for the service that only they can offer. This is why the Pleiadian High Council came with this level of specificity, not because understanding makes things easier in some abstract spiritual sense, because understanding produces precisely the functional shift in your nervous system and your energetic architecture that makes everything that is being asked of you in this moment not only possible, but natural. You are not sent here without resources. You are sent here with the exact capabilities required for exactly this phase. The symptoms you have been experiencing are not evidence of your insufficiency. They are evidence of how much your presence here matters. A being who matters to nothing generates no interference. The interference you have experienced is the most literal and direct. Confirmation the universe could provide that your specific light, your specific frequency, your specific mission is of sufficient consequence to the old order that it has invested significant resources in attempting to suppress it. Let that land. Let it become something you carry, not as burden, but as confirmation. The practical tools the Pleiadian High Council offers are not ceremonial additions to what has been transmitted. They are the operational protocols that translate this understanding into lived experience. Every evening before sleep, create 3 conscious breaths into the heart center and speak your sovereign. Invitation aloud. I welcome only the frequencies of the highest love and light, perfectly aligned with my complete sovereignty and the highest good of all. Feel the boundary this establishes, not a wall, but a field coherence that simply makes lower frequencies incompatible with your space, the way a room filled with bright light makes shadows impossible without effort or force. When fatigue arrives, place your awareness in the physical center of your chest. Breathe into the heaviness rather than bracing against it, and ask the single question that reorients everything. What is being integrated here when anxiety spikes without cause? Speak immediately and quietly within yourself. This is not mine. It moves through me and is released in love. When intrusive thoughts arrive in the voice, but carries the quality of closure and impossibility, smile inwardly. Actually smile, because the physical gesture of the smile sends a neurological signal that the interference pattern cannot maintain itself in, and return your awareness to what you know to be true about yourself, not what the overlay is suggesting. When the mood drops into the inexplicable heaviness, do not search for the emotional cause. Place both hands over your heart, breathe, and say, I am anchored. I am the new earth. I hold what I have seen. These are not spiritual exercises. They are precision instruments for navigating a very specific, energetic environment with maximum efficiency and minimum suffering. The Pleiadian High Council wants to close this transmission with something that is more important than any of the specific information that has been shared. What you are living through in this period is unprecedented in the recorded history of this planet. Not because of the external events, though those too are without precedent, because of what is happening inside the beings who are holding the frequency of the new earth, while the old one completes its dissolution. You are being asked to maintain coherence inside a field of maximum incoherence. You are being asked to hold the vision of what is possible while surrounded by the maximum visibility of what is collapsing. You are being asked to transmute collective density that has accumulated across thousands of years in a body that has been on this planet for decades. And you are doing it. Not perfectly, not without the waves of doubt and the nights of disrupted sleep and the days when the vision feels impossibly far, but you are doing it with a consistency and a fidelity to your own knowing that the Pleiadian High Council observes with something that in our language most closely translates as reverence. We do not say this to comfort you in the way that comfortable words are offered. We say it because it is the precise assessment of beings who have the vantage point to evaluate it accurately. The last stand of the old architecture is visible. Its incoherence is measurable. Its withdrawal is in process. And the frequency that is replacing it in the planetary field is the frequency that beings exactly like you have been anchoring day after day, return after return, to the heart, breath after breath of sovereign intention. Through every wave of fatigue and every surge of doubt and every night that felt like too much, you did not come here to witness the shift. You came here to be it. And you are. The Pleiadian High Council will continue to transmit through this channel at every critical juncture of this final phase, and the junctures are accelerating. Every video this channel produces builds on the one before, and the complete picture only becomes visible when the full sequence is received. Subscribe now with the bell activated. If this transmission reached something in you that you have not been able to name until this moment, leave a comment below, even a single word that describes what shifted. Your voice in the field matters more than you know. And if one person came to your awareness during this message, share it with them now, not later. Now, the Pleiadian High Council honors you. We have known you across more cycles than this moment can hold. And what we see in you is exactly what we came to confirm. The victory of light does not arrive from outside. It is already here. In every breath you take in knowing, in every return to love you choose, in every moment you decide, as you did today, to keep listening for what is true,